This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Two here, Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network. SiriusXM channel 158 alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony with you. Still to come this hour, we'll have our best bets at the end of the day as usual. We'll dive into some WNBA. As we mentioned last segment when we had Adam Burke on, we'll do a preview of some of the head coaches that are in new places in college football. 33 new head coaches, or not new head coaches in general, but head coaches at new places entering this 2026 season. Also,
new places, new faces.
New places. Well, you should have thought of that for a title earlier, but, where were you at?
It's like one of the most cliched ways to talk about.
Well, where were you at? Instead, I just have new head coaches.
Yeah. I mean, that's a true statement.
Plenty of baseball to get into. Bottom of the third in our lone day game, Brewers and Cardinals going head-to-head. And our boy, Jacob Misiorowski, just gave up another solo shot as the Brew Crew trails 3-2 right now. He is at 5 strikeouts on the day, though, so at about 39 pitches. Hopefully he can still get there for my over 7.5.
Jacob Misiorowski, more like Jacob Misiorowski, because he's just given up a bunch of home runs.
Dude,
how about that? Yeah, that's pretty bad. Now, here's the thing. I wanted to bring this up for many different reasons, but it's not just today. So I will remind our audience, you look at his last start, you had brought this up. He gave up 2 home runs, so it's back-to-back starts when he has allowed 2 long balls there. He gave up a home run in the start previous to that on June 26th against the Chicago Cubs. So the homer all of a sudden has become part of the resume, despite the fact that it was not really there for him. So maybe it's just flash in the pan, and eventually as a pitcher you're going to give up some home runs. But it's just worth pointing out that he is starting to give up some distance here when you look at the distance he has created to keep that going in the National League Cy Young race. And the reason why I think this is worth bringing up is not just because of his own struggles, but, Stormy, we had mentioned this in passing last week, and this is an extension of a conversation Mitch and I had on Pod to the Futures yesterday. He has pitched 104 innings coming into today through 17 starts. Last year, he pitched 66 over the course of 15 appearances, 14 starts in the major league level. He had pitched 63 in a third at the minor league level before coming up. So it puts you at about 129 innings. So, you're quickly approaching the most that you've thrown in a single season at the professional level, and all of these are coming at the major league level. So just curious as we approach the All-Star break and then post-All-Star break, as those innings rack up and you start to get to the point, and Adam brings this up all the time, the most innings that you have pitched in a single season at this level, of what that means for him. Is it just a coincidence that he's starting to give up some more homers more often over these last few starts? Or is it time to start to look around for potentially some of these guys starting to bubble up to the surface to push for a National League Cy Young candidacy, maybe even steal it from him? I don't know if it's Christopher Sanchez. We have well documented his struggles. Obviously, gave up 8 earned runs last time out, and that was just yesterday. That is the third start in 5 that he's allowed 4+ earned runs. So we've started to see the wheels come off for Christopher Sanchez. But may I present to you a potential candidate that might be worth looking at? There's 2 of them, but one man who has been dominating as of late, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, coming off of a 7-inning performance against your San Diego Padres, in which he blanked them, struck out 10, only walked 2. You look at his overall profile, dating all the way back to, we'll whittle it down to May 18th, which, ironically enough, was a start against San Diego Padres. Sorry, Stormy. But if you go back, it's just worth pointing out. But if you go back over this game log for him and what he has done, Yamamoto, over this stretch that I'm talking about, he's been absolutely dominant. And so you do wonder if maybe at 18-1 for Yamamoto, if it's actually worth adding to the portfolio here, given the recent struggles of the 2 dudes at the top. Yeah. And now that we're watching here with Jacob Misiorowski, what's been happening. So just worth putting in your craw. But by the way, over that stretch that I'm talking about here for Yamamoto, 148 ERA, 261 expected, and has been very, very good in terms of his strikeout to walk ratio, and less than half a home run, every 9 innings.
He and Chris Sale for the Braves both sitting there at 18-1. Then odds get longer. Chase Burns, 25-1. Paul Skeens, 30-1. Skeens, by the way, also in action today. And let's stick with baseball here, because I don't want to shortchange any of your WNBA thoughts. I know there
God
are
forbid.
a lot of games coming up here today, and a couple results from yesterday, too. You mentioned Christopher Sanchez. He was on the hook for 12 hits, 3 home runs, 9 earned runs, just 1 strikeout in the 15-1 loss to the Royals. Meanwhile, Cam Schlittler on the AL side was a monster in Tampa Bay, tossed 8 innings of just 4 hits, 1 run ball, 8 strikeouts for him, which I think when you shift it now toward all of the games that we have today, Skeens, Tarek Skubal, DeGrom, Will Warren, like a lot of big-name pitchers on their respective hills today. Do we get dominance or disaster with some of these guys? Any in particular that caught your attention?
Yeah, I mean, there's all of them really that you're discussing here. But I think looking at Skeens is one. We had covered this in length when he made his last start, and how these last 9 starts for Paul Skeens, the command rate has the command has been really, really down. Walk rate is really up. He's not able to find the strike zone with any sort of consistency. Adam had a great point about the spin rate and the fact that maybe there's some indicators here for Skeens that he is a dude that might be a little injured and maybe pitching a little differently, so that pain, whatever it is, maybe isn't bothering him. But he is very clearly not the same pitcher that he was at the start of the year. And so you do wonder if, as we had discussed the first time we had talked about him coming off of his last start, is it time to start fading him as the market started to catch up from these prices? I mean, look at where we're at right now. You understand the pitching discrepancy on the surface and what we know about these pitchers, but laying $1.50 for a guy that's got an ERA over 4 in his last 9 starts and whose command over that stretch has been very below average. Are we going to get Paul Skeens the first 9 starts? Or are we going to get the guy that's been out there over the last few months? Because if you're getting the guy that's out there over the last few months, I don't care if it's, well, I would care if it's you out there on the hill, but to keep the hyperbole going, I wouldn't care if it's you out there on the other hill. I don't think I'd lay $1.50 on the other side with Skeens in the way that he's pitching. So This has been part of the equation, what we talk about for Skeens and market adjustment. It does not seem that you've seen a giant adjustment, and in fact, some spots are up to like $1.50 here against Waldrop and the Atlanta Braves.
Braves, I know, haven't been great lately, but to your point, Skeens hasn't been either. So minus 150 feels like a pretty steep price. The under in terms of total runs today, sitting at 8, around minus 110 each way.
Speaking of not great lately, you watch your Padres?
Yeah, we know.
What's going on?
How about your Angels? How are they doing? Let's go to that game. Jose Soriano going today. That's got to make you feel great.
There's no expectations for my Angels whatsoever. 43-37 on a fateful night on a Friday, June 26th, in which the Los Angeles Dodgers go out to Petco Park and fall at the hands of the Padres 7-1. Since then, your team's record, 1-9. They have been awful. And some of these results got blanked on Monday, 8-0 to keep the soccer thing going. Got absolutely crushed by the Chicago Cubs. Remember that one last week, 23-3, 12-7.
Yep,
I think they were up 6-0 in that game.
Yeah.
Got absolutely smoked. So I'm just curious. I have nothing on the pitching matchup, but it is interesting to watch your team flail and suffer and just get absolutely dog-walked every time they step out onto a ballpark.
How many teams are there in Major League Baseball?
There are 30.
And where are the Angels in that?
I mean, you don't have to keep doing it. You don't think it's fascinating?
Dead last.
And Herman Marquez, about $1.15 favorite or so. Now, they're starting to get bet against, too, which I think makes some sense. Zach Gallen has not been good.
I think it's also funny how you mentioned, like, the Padres' recent history. You guys are writing a 6-game skid as we speak.
You see, I'm not taking this personal. I'm just persevering through all of your heckling to just point out that the Padres are getting bet against here today, because that's part of it. And I brought it up because I assumed as a Padres fan you would have some insight into their recent struggles as opposed to just getting mad at me for pointing out factual statements.
I don't have anything on that game today. Apologies.
Onward to what Adam has on his article, and I think it's a different angle, but that's why I asked him about it, too. I am selfishly interested in Brian Wu today.
I thought you did have something on the Angels. You highlighted it, so I assumed that you had an opinion.
It's just Soriano and DeGrom, but I didn't really have like a ton on it, and it's my Rangers, so we can talk about that. But I think the sexier matchup is Brian Wu, and on the road here against Miami, just because of how well Miami's been playing. And this is actually, it's a really fun pitching matchup. So on a day in which we do get Paul Skeens and Zach Wheeler and Soriano, I guess we can include them among them, right? Skubal is going to be out there. You get an actually low-key, sexy pitching matchup out there in Miami because Meyer has been pitching really well. And I think the outcome here, I like Adam's angle on playing this 8 under. I think that makes some sense. For the background, too, because we've talked a little bit about Wu, but for those who have not kept track, Max Meyer has been really, really good. 2.53 ERA. The expected numbers are there that maybe you're going to chase some sort of regression, but we've talked about guys like him, pitch to contact. You know, you're kind of chasing some of those ghosts in the numbers that really don't give a full picture of what he's been able to do up to this point. So I'm kind of at a point where you don't want to blindly trust anybody, much like you do in your personal life, and think everybody's great and fun and happy and nice. But I think I do
I'm an optimistic individual, and I trust the things that people say to me.
You want to blindly trust Max Meyer almost every time out that he's going to put together a performance that's going to give you something. But Wu's home and road splits have been absolutely incredible. And so you do wonder if this is just kind of a yips thing. For those who don't know or weren't with us a little bit earlier with Burke, I mean, you look at this. On the road, 48 innings pitched, 6.38 ERA, 4.63 fielding independent. My dude has gotten smoked every time he has stepped out of the Pacific Northwest. But then when he pitches up there, he's been great. But I like Adam's angle here. the fact that they are a team that is, this is a pitcher-friendly park. He's maybe going to have a little bit more leeway. Maybe you feel a little bit better mentally in a park like this, knowing its history. And so I thought Mariners first 5 plus 105 worth playing here today.
The only game that I do have a bet on, and we'll recap these later on in the show, was I did lay the run line with the Dodgers, although looking around, that price is getting bet up upwards of minus 130 now. I got it minus 115 earlier today, but minus 142 at DraftKings. I think that the Dodgers should dominate the Rockies today. Robleski was really great in this matchup earlier this season when these two played, went 7 innings, just 1 earned run allowed in a 12-3 win. He's 10-2 as a starter, 2.80 ERA, covered the run line in 3 of his last 4 starts, and all but one of his wins this season have been by 2+ runs. So this is one of those spots that, especially coming off yesterday where they had the big lead, let it go, end up having to go to extras in order to get the win, I think they'll be, that much more inclined to have the best team in Major League Baseball against one of the worst. Not the worst, though, as we have already detailed here today. Should have a pretty solid performance today. I'm not a big fan of Michael Lorenzen on the other side.
Yeah, former Angel. You're going out on a limb there.
I know.
The $3 favor. You think they're going to dominate, huh?
Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Sometimes the square play is the right play, although you should know the sharp plays is what you really need to care about. They are covering it all and have been for 15 straight years, all of it documented, logs posted publicly at sharpplays.com. That kind of transparency. Rare in the industry. When the sharp plays move, the sports books take notice. Advanced AI, trusted insider intel, they find the value before numbers shift. Respected, watched, and feared. Start winning with them over at sharpplays.com. Again, that's sharpplays.com. All that to say, big favorites, even when they're down 2-0 in the 79th minute, still find a way to come out on top. Argentina, for anyone who missed it, unbelievable result for them as a more than $7 favorite to advance, ends up getting it done in crazy fashion the final 15 minutes of that game earlier today. We got to step aside. We'll have some more World Cup bets a little bit later on in the program, but when we return, let's dive into the W, because JVT's got thoughts on the games today, as well as some make-miss playoff bets to consider.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Rolling along here on a Tuesday edition of Money Moves. Stormy Bonantoni, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. What's going on?
So I missed this about an hour ago, and I apologize, but thank you for letting me speak. I didn't mean to ruin your flow, so I want to be much nicer to you, Stormy. LeBron James, quote, absolutely knows what team he is going to sign with, and, quote, the vibes are pointing towards returning to the Cavaliers, per Brian Windhorst of ESPN on ESPN Cleveland.
Well, I mean, that's where we've talked a lot about the prediction markets have certainly shifted toward the Cleveland Cavaliers over the last handful of days. He's been back out at the old stomping grounds, hanging out with all of his old high school friends and teammates, including Brandon Weems, who's now in the front office over there. And who was it initially that had that report? Oh, no, it wasn't a report. It was Rich Paul himself saying, Brandon Weems, it's big
Correct.
Feather in the cap. Big feather in the cap. So just adding more credence, I guess, to that theory that's been out there about Cleveland.
Well, if you're buying Windhorst's report, I would argue that this is selling relatively cheap out there, especially like you're looking at Polymarket. It's only trading at 54% that the Cavaliers are going to be his next team. So if you believe that report and you're only laying what is essentially minus 117 on information by an insider that knows LeBron James very well that all of the vibes are pointing toward the Cleveland Cavaliers, it seems like a relatively cheap price, no?
Sure. And especially, what I think is so interesting about this is how quickly the narrative changed. Because it was all in on Golden State there for a minute, and that got flipped on its head quickly.
Yeah. I mean, Draymond Green opts out. I thought that was going to be the reason why. Maybe he's going to leave for Cleveland. Maybe Draymond's going to go play with LeBron in Cleveland.
What percent did you say that was? 56?
I'm looking at 54.
54. It was 58 yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's actually come down despite a report saying that that's the most likely spot.
That was from about an hour ago. So
interesting.
Market's not really buying it too much at this point. But I mean, Windhorst knows what he's doing when it comes to the information. And he is Windhorst is usually one that is very careful whenever he is reporting something. We all remember the famous Utah Jazz thing with, Royce O'Neal gets traded. Yeah, why would they do that? Why would they trade him for a first-round pick? Which ultimately led to, weeks later, the Jazz just completely fire-selling and selling off Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. So he's very careful and does not give out information unless it's pretty concrete.
Yeah.
So it seems that this would be, I would say, pretty concrete.
Even with I like his reporting style because he's very choosy with the words that he uses too, because he knows how much weight they hold, which I appreciate. Speaking of basketball, though, I know you have been diving more and more into the WNBA. Interesting result yesterday for the Minnesota Lynx, who are your favorite, by the way, to win the WNBA title this year. First game without their rookie sensation, Olivia Miles. They get upset at home as an 11.5-point favorite here against the Connecticut Sun, who are the worst team in the league. And I know we talked yesterday about how our guy Tyler Shoemaker does a great job covering the WNBA.
That's right.
Said, for him, based on his numbers, without Olivia Miles, this would be a play on the Sun, and the Sun have been covering more and more. 3 of their last 4 games they've won straight up, 4 straight covers, 8-4 against the spread now in their last 12 games. So they have been good at covering these numbers. But to get the outright win as a double-digit dog to that team, pretty impressive.
It is. It goes to show. I had a buddy many years ago in the Tank for 2 a year. That had told me not only are the Dolphins going to lose every game, but they're going to go 0-16 against the spread. And my whole point, I was like, buddy, that can't really happen. The market adjusts, and you're going to get too low at some point. They're going to cover a number. They're just going to stumble into it. Same thing with Connecticut seems to be happening. The market rating's just so low that they're starting to get some of these covers. And you've talked about how well they've been doing it, and we mentioned it yesterday, and they continue to do so. So that's, I think, a pretty good example of it. Also, interestingly enough, that we've seen over the last couple of days that 2 MVP candidates, yes, 2, miss their respective contests, and their teams fall by a very big margin, and maybe their MVP candidacies improve because A'ja Wilson misses another game. Fever go out there, beat them up 84-68. So your value for both players
Clearly shows.
Yeah, clearly shows considering where it's at. And I think Miles has a little bit more of a chance to win MVP than we're giving her credit for, just given the way that this is going, although Napheesa Collier is back at practice, so that is worth bringing up. Also worth pointing out from yesterday. Go ahead.
July 1st was her first time back to full team activities after her off-season surgeries on both ankles, which is crazy.
So you see the injury report, and it says ankles.
Yeah, wild. But that'll be huge for them to get her back. I think, though, for Miles, who is a rookie, to be keeping this team in the positions that she has all season long. Very impressive. Still available at 9-1 if you think that she could end up getting there. A'ja Wilson, though, odds on more than $3.
I also wanted to point out from yesterday, in protest, we call them the Valkyrie, but they win their 5th straight, cover their 5th straight, and are 7-2 straight up and against the spread in their last 9 games. So I had brought that up of not fraudulence per se, but they had played mostly at home. 3 of their previous 4 games had been against the same team, Atlanta. Maybe it's just a matchup that works in their favor. How are you going to do now in the role of road favorite? And sure enough, they go out there and deliver against the Washington Mystics. So didn't have much on the card for today, and there isn't much. There's 2 games, but a good one. Wings and Liberty. Is the Liberty going to be at home at about a 3.5-point favorite or so? I'm obviously very curious here. I got to watch the Wings in person last week when they were out here taking on. Was that last week or the week before already? Either way, yeah, watching them and the way that they've been performing snapped last time out a little bit of a skid when it came to the ATS results. The Wings did on the road against Toronto. So now you get a short number here against the New York Liberty. This is going to be the better game on the card of the 2. And the Wings have been pretty impressive. And Azzi Fudd's been coming along pretty well. And I think from a standpoint of a number, this seems relatively short. And you don't have Satu Sabali still out there for the New York Liberty. But I think this maybe seems like a number that I'd lean a little bit toward New York at home, just given the short nature of it. But have not watched recently how this Liberty team has been performing, as we have discussed at length. We're a little banged up, had a kind of a tough road trip and stretch where they played the Las Vegas Aces in the Commissioner's Cup final and then have a little bit of a letdown afterward. But either way, not afterward, before that, be taking on the Golden State Valkyrie. But either way, I think it would be a Liberty or nothing for me in a spot like this.
Kind of a fun thing for this game, Gino Auriemma and Robin Roberts, who are ESPN's first WNBA broadcasters, are calling the game tonight. It's a national one, and I guess who better for the UConn-laden game that we have here. Brianna Stewart on the Liberty side of this thing, Paige Beckers and Azzi Fudd for Dallas. Also, did want to point out, and I know you had some make-miss playoff numbers that intrigued you a little bit, but not that I'm going to say the Wings are in a position, like they're already minus 4,000 favorites to make the playoffs. That's not something that this really matters for. The Liberty also, like they're not going to miss the playoffs, but I did think just an interesting scheduling note for both of these teams. The Wings have played the third hardest schedule in the league to this point, but have the second easiest remaining schedule. New York, meanwhile, has played the easiest in the league so far, but have the fourth most difficult remaining schedule. So it's just going to get harder for them. And I know they're pretty high up there on the standings right now, but it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows the rest of the way.
No, I mean, I thought there was just a couple. I mean, so the top 8 teams make it. One of the teams, they're a full game back, and some of it has to do with health. They're also kind of playing pretty poorly, and that ties into the injuries that they have suffered here. But the Tempo were a team that are pretty interesting just because of the offensive upside when they are fully healthy, but I don't know if they're going to get healthy in time to make a run to get back into the picture here. You see them, they're about 11-1 to make the postseason. But also a team like the Mystics. We've talked about them. Some of our guests that we have had have covered the Washington Mystics, and the upside of the way that this team has been playing. They have some pretty strong wins on their resume. Recently beat the Atlanta Dream, too. And speaking of the Dream, this is the one that I think is definitely worth pointing out. Dream have been playing really well, Stormy, and you look at the playoff odds for them to make the postseason at this point right now. They have lost 5 straight, and they are sitting there with about a 2.5 game lead over the Tempo, who are on the outside looking in. But you're starting to see the wheels come off a bit for the Atlanta Dream. Now, again, worth pointing out, 3 of the 5 games they have lost have been to the same opponent, and it's a very good Valkyries team. But Dream right now are on just the edge of the playoff picture, and here they are laying such a fat price to make the postseason.
So are you going to take a shot at 40-1 to miss?
I mean, it seems too easy, doesn't it? That's why I wanted to bring this up, because I was just looking through these, and I was like, that seems pretty interesting, because you've got some interesting teams on the outside looking in. I mentioned the Tempo. The Sparks are out there as well. Some of them are tied to some injuries, so if some players come back, you can maybe make a little bit of a push, and it's not the greatest mountain to climb to get back in there. So I thought that the market's belief that the Dream are solidly locked in despite just a 2.5 game lead over the first team out. That is a price that is pretty wild, I would think, in all consideration. Just the actual probability. If you're going to give me, what is it again, 70-1? Is that where we're at? 40-1?
40-1 on the Dream.
Yeah, 40-1 to make to miss the playoffs for a team that is in 7th place right now.
Yeah. Real quickly, because you brought up the Sparks and the injury stuff there, Kelsey Plum and Cameron Brink. What is like the standing of their injuries right now? Brink was kind of indefinite. We saw the picture of her foot. I know that was gnarly. But what's been the talk about them coming back?
Well, I mean, Plum was what, 3 or 4 weeks, I think, was the injury timeline for her. So it was gonna be a while before she came back. And like you said, when it came to Brink, I mean, that was a nasty lower leg injury that I think that. For sure, Plum was late July, and I'll have to look up Brink and what that was going to look like for her. Okay,
I know you said you didn't have anything on the other game, but worth noting tonight, that second game of the evening, is the Sky and Mercury going head-to-head. Phoenix laying 3.5 in this spot, total 172.5. Chicago getting better? I mean, they actually, so when I was watching them, and your colleague, Tiffany Blackman's watched her on one of those games, in which there was a furious comeback from the aforementioned Dallas Wings. They've been in a lot of competitive contests, so I think that they're showing at least some improvement from that regard. I don't know overall if they're getting in better enough to make a really big push, but there's a stretch where they were covering some numbers and staying inside of some of them just because of how competitive they've been. They won 2 of their last 4. Yep. 2 of them to both those wins, though, to the same team, but then push Vegas right on the road to overtime. Like maybe getting a little bit better here. Okay, we got to step aside here on Money Moves. When we come back, looking to a little college football. There are plenty of head coaches in new places this season. We'll dive into some of the ones that we think could be the most impactful in 2026 next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Money Moves, Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We're live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino, keeping tabs on our lone MLB game in action right now. The Brewers and St. Louis Cardinals head-to-head. Cards up 3-2 right now. Jacob Misiorowski giving up 2 homers today, a 2-run shot earlier in the first inning, and then another solo shot a little bit later. He does have 6 Ks to this point. I need 2 more for my prop. Come on.
Yep, I believe. I will root, and I believe that you will win, but in a really good way, unlike the Americans, which, that was all nonsense. We were sold a false bill of goods. You don't want to hit
We really were.
Yeah, we were. You don't want to hit the big breaking news? really quick here.
Are you talking about the?
Breaking.
Yeah.
LeBron James has come to a handshake agreement with his new team. And details of the contract will be made public in the next 2 weeks, per sources.
And this report is from who?
Somebody or something called Emma Vance.
And not telling you the team.
Yeah, no. What do you need that? You need that? Come on now. What
So
are we talking
silly.
about? Don't worry. Details
So
will be made
silly.
public in the next 2 weeks.
So
I forgot to add, this is actually the important part of it. This team will be an immediate contender.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's one of those like fake reporters,
That's
right?
an important detail, though, because he was considering signing with the Brooklyn Nets. But, we have to make sure that they're going to be an immediate contender for LeBron and what could ultimately be his final year or penultimate year.
Good Lord. Whenever anything of substance comes from the LeBron James saga, we will certainly be sure to let you know. We'll have best bets coming up in about 15 minutes to round out the show today. But with Big 12 Media Days getting underway today, college football is certainly on the brain. This is the start of talking season for college football. And as we've talked about today, kind of previewing this segment, there are a lot of new faces in new places in terms of head coaches. Yesterday, we were discussing some of those quarterbacks that are with new programs this year in terms of head coaches. 33 FBS programs with new head men in charge, the bulk among Power 4 conferences as well with 17, 6 in the SEC alone. The SEC and Big 10 Media Days will be later on this month, but I'll admit, and I've said this to you before, the Big 10, because as a college football sideline reporter at ESPN, we don't have the Big 10. And admittedly, the Big 10 for the last couple of years has been a little bit of a blind spot for me. When I was going through this exercise, looking at some of the new head coaching stuff, like the Big 10 is where I have the most interest because of what Penn State is. I hadn't really done a deep dive into their schedule or what this roster looked like until about a week ago. And then yesterday, really diving into their schedule and looking at how easy it is. Matt Campbell is set up for so much success here. It's crazy.
I mean, I don't know. I would disagree. I mean, you don't think Temple and Buffalo or dominant non-conference opponents as well as Marshall that they might struggle with?
This schedule is ridiculous.
It's very easy.
Like, I was genuinely shocked going through it. So you just said it. They're 3 G5 non-cons, right? Are Marshall, Temple, and Buffalo.
Yep.
You get a tough one against USC on October 10th, but you're at home.
Yep.
And granted, it's early October, but still maybe getting a little bit chilly over there for the Southern California boys. Road trip to the Big House the following week. Outside of that, they don't face another Big 10 team, JVT, with a win total above 7.5. They avoid Ohio State, no Oregon, no Indiana, and offensively, they should be pretty stout, bringing over, like, I don't know if you want to call it Iowa State East. All of the really, really good pieces that Matt Campbell had at Iowa State, he's brought with him here.
So I think that's the argument you make, isn't it? It's if you're going to make an argument against what you're talking about, which is an easy schedule, it's okay, but you are kind of just revamping Iowa State and putting them in different uniforms. And we have seen the Cyclones kind of be disappointing when you've had some pretty good returning production if you're Matt Campbell. And James Franklin was a really good recruiter. Those were some really talented teams. And we knew how good he was in that role of beating them up and being the bully and whatnot. Can Campbell serve those purposes as well? Because I could also see a scenario in which you beat Purdue at home on Halloween, and then the next week you got to make a long road trip out to Washington, right? And then you just kind of dump the bed there on a tough road spot all the way out there in the Pacific Northwest. And then, of course, I mean, I would assume you're going to be a dog potentially on the road against Michigan, and all of a sudden you've lost 2 out of 3, and you're like, well, here we go with Campbell. What's going to happen? But to your overall point, I would agree. I mean, there's hardly any spots here that if you look at the way that Penn State's rated and what we know about their roster, that you're expecting, at worst, any fewer than 2 losses in Campbell's debut season.
So I think he kept enough pieces, and the people that he's bringing, like, we've talked about this a lot with college football. There are certain keys that you look for when you want to bet on or against a team. And one big one for me is head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback continuity. And the fact that you have that here with Campbell, Rocco Becht, and Taylor Mauser all together with the best weapons. It's not like you took everybody from Iowa State, but you took the key pieces like Brett Eskelson and Chase Sowell and Ben Bramer at tight end, who's like the 6'7" monster. You're going to see a lot more tight end sets than you have at Penn State in the past with what they want to do with this offense. And Beck, part of what derailed Iowa State so much last year was the injuries, and that Rocco Becht was playing through a shoulder injury for almost all season.
Yeah, that was going to be my question to you as somebody who has seen him up close, because statistically, he has declined the last few seasons. I mean, his breakout year, sophomore year, he has 23 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He completes just over 62% of his passes, just about 63. But you've seen the yards per attempt go down. You've seen the touchdown interception ratio kind of float around the same, get a little bit worse last year. But you buy that it's more of a health thing than anything else?
I really, really do. And he is supposedly like coming back and should be good and healthy. My only concern with this team really is their offensive line, and you got to build up some quick chemistry in those cupcake games early on. But because this schedule is what it is, I think it sets up really, really nicely for them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, there was also some wide receiver issues, weren't there? Like they were playing some big tight end, a lot of tight ends at times if you were at Iowa State because they had some wide receiver injuries, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, but they also, like, Taylor Mauser just loves tight ends.
Yeah.
He literally has a TE tattoo in between his fingers. You're going to see a lot of that still. But yes, they had a lot of injuries that plagued them. The win total, 8.5 or 9.5, depending on where you're willing to spend the juice. But I think a 10-win season is extremely reasonable for this group if Rocco Becht stays healthy. And with any of these teams that we're talking about, ifs are going to play into that. But plus 140 on the over 9.5, like, I don't hate that at all.
And speaking of, so we're just scratching the surface on the new faces and new places, as you and I both.
Sorry, I could do this whole segment on Penn State. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm just saying, no, I just mean in the sense of talking about the head coaches, because as you and I both discovered a couple of weeks ago, when whatever reason it came up, because I think I accidentally said his name as opposed to Brian Kelly, but we were both like, oh yeah, and Chip Kelly's the offensive coordinator at Northwestern. Yeah. So you talk about the new staffs as well, outside of just the head coaches, but all these different play callers in different places too. I mean, it seems a massive shift, and there is every year, but this seems like there is a lot going on this year.
Yeah, no question about it. And it's all over the place. Another hire that I think intrigues me from a standpoint of, like, are you going to be able to deliver this year is John Sumrall in Florida. Mm-hmm. Because it's not Billy Napier the last 2 years having to deal with the number one most difficult schedule in all of college football, but it's still the SEC, so it's still going to be a difficult schedule. And for a coach who isn't exactly known for his patience, he wants to win now, and he has, granted, at stops like Troy and Tulane, which is a little bit different than jumping into the SEC. But he has really bought over the fan base at this point. He's had a mass influx of transfers, 60 new players, including at quarterback. After all the high expectations that there were for DJ Lagway the last couple of years, well, he's at Baylor. They've got a quarterback battle here with Aaron Philo, who comes over from Georgia Tech. But you have that, what's the word I'm like? You have that quarterback continuity again here with Buster Faulkner, who comes over from Georgia Tech. He was kind of biding his time behind Haynes King. He's the leader in the clubhouse, at least it seems to be QB1 for this Florida team. Skill positions all around the quarterback are in great shape. Should have one of the best wide receiver rooms in the SEC. Great running back. Offensive line, again, though, like, that's kind of the question that's holding me back on this. Defense should be good again. I don't know. This is a coach that I have bought in on the last few years at his respective stops, and I'm curious to see if he can make an immediate impact in Florida. Win total, again, depending on the juice and what you're willing to pay, over 6.5 or over 7.5.
Yeah. I think that those two, I think, are at the top of the list. I'm really curious to see what your boy Kyle Whittingham is going to do out there in Ann Arbor as well, taking over Michigan. Yeah. And some real questions, I think, for the most part, about what Bryce Underwood really is going to be. I mean, there's quite a bit of pressure here. There was a lot of money shipped off to go and get him, and the results, and again, you talk about pretty young, even in the sense of college football. The results, though, in the year that we saw were not overtly impressive. There were times where it was okay, but I think you expected more given the hype. And Whittingham's an interesting dude. I mean, he was the model of consistency, even with a quarterback room that how many years in a row outside of last year, and maybe some games here and there where they fudged the injury report. But it was just a carousel at quarterback because there were so many injuries over the last few years that he had to deal with. Now you've got a high-end talent at the most important position. You've got a coach that I think knows to get the most out of his roster and playing with certain style. Are you going to get the most out of Bryce Underwood and what Kyle Whittingham's going to do here?
Reportedly, the relationship with Underwood and Jason Beck has been awesome, and the system seems seamless for what he wants to do, which is, at least on the surface, a little bit of a surprise to me. But I think Kyle Whittingham was the perfect coach to take over a program that has been marred in controversy. He's got the perfect background. He is all about culture, and getting that fixed, I think, is priority one for this team. And he brought over a lot more of the coaches from Utah than I expected him to be able to, because you had Morgan Scalley, who was that head coach in waiting that essentially pushed Whittingham out at 66 years old. Those types of things, like, it's always going to end that way at some point. But he is a guy that I think is very motivated, to your point, based on how the last 5 years have gone. You're at a place like Michigan where you know you're going to be able to get talent. You have a lot of the coaches that you trust and believe in. You were able to get Jason Beck. Basically, the entire offensive coaching staff ended up coming with him. His strength and conditioning coach, who's been with him for 21 years, is there. And they have a lot of talent on this team. So I'm excited to see what Michigan is. Again, for somebody who doesn't do a lot of Big Ten, I'm pretty pumped about some of these Big Ten storylines.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Give me one more strikeout, please. Jacob Misiorowski. Come on now. Just one more. We're one away from getting that over 7.5. Bottom of the 6th inning, tied at 3 right now in St. Louis. First game of a doubleheader out there for the Cards.
Actually, sorry. Looks like they're going to VAR, and they have rescinded one of his strikeouts, so he's down to 6 now.
Yeah. Boy, has that been an adventure in the World Cup. For as much fun as the World Cup has been and how wild some of these results have been, I'm looking at you, Argentina, today, coming back from down 2-0 in the 79th minute to win. But, VAR has been a little bit of a pain in the tail.
It's a tough result for you. 0-2 count, but grounds out.
Come on. And as you put it, 14th straight game with 7+ strikeouts. Yes, but we need 8. Mm-hmm. There's no plus yet. There's no plus. We need the plus.
Yeah, just 7+. Yeah.
One other thing, real quickly, coming off of our conversation last segment about these new head coaches in different places. We, again, 33 across FBS, new
faces, new places?
New faces and new places. You made the comment when we were talking about Matt Campbell and Penn State about, like, is it really going to be that much better when you're just bringing over all the same Iowa State talent? When we were in the break, I was just thinking, how many people probably said that about Curt Cignetti and all the JMU players that he brought to Indiana, who ended up working out pretty darn nicely for him there?
I would say, yes, that's a fair point. But I think Curt Cignetti clearly seems to be the aberration to an extent. He's such a good coach. Like, I think, is this controversial? I think Curt Cignetti's a better coach than Matt Campbell.
It's fair.
Okay. So,
but I think Matt Campbell is a good coach also.
Well, I think he's a good coach, but I don't know about you. There's also been quite a few years where I've been disappointed by Iowa State in the big picture. Sure. They have been.
Well, they haven't won anything, right?
Correct.
And that was my big, flaw to Penn State when they made the hire was you fire James Franklin.
We both argued about it, right?
Because he hasn't won anything, and then you hire a guy who also hasn't won anything.
Grass isn't always greener. I mean, I understand the disappointment, but when and I don't know if this is going to happen, but I'm just saying, if we fast forward 4 years and you're constantly toiling around with just 9-win seasons under Matt Campbell, again, that's good for any other program. I'm a fan of a program that, as you like to make fun of me for, has made it to 3 straight conference championship games and have lost all 3. Guess what? That is a godsend for where that program was. Sure. And so for Matt Campbell, hey, man, consistent 9-win years and your off appearance in a Big 12 championship game, it's pretty good. You also got smoked in that Big 12 championship game, and you haven't really had any of those big years that we've expected. And I'm just curious to see if that's really going to change. Because, as I said, it's not always better when you're moving on. And sometimes constantly having 11-1 seasons and maybe flaming out in some of the biggest games, which, by the way, they made a run a couple of years ago. But I understand the dynamics. I'm not saying you should have been fired. Last year was an absolute dumpster fire for the way they went down. But I'm just really curious to see how Campbell pans out because he was good. He was not great at Iowa State.
And I'll just say, considering where that coaching search was, because it looked bleak there for a minute, right? Because so many coaches, if you remember back, were using the opportunity of Penn State's interest to leverage themselves into better contract. I mean, Curt Cignetti was one of them, right? It was him. It was Kalani Sitake, Clark Lee, Matt Rule, even among those guys. And so it felt like, okay, are you settling for Matt Campbell? But I genuinely think he's a good coach. It's a good situation. But again, I go back to it is also a guy who hasn't won anything yet. And so if that's your thing, is you're trying to get over the hump, is he the guy?
He got his 8th strikeout in Jacob Misiorowski.
Let's go!
And I'll have you know that
we'll
he
put
won.
A little check mark next to that on the graphic.
He won the MAC West twice. Okay. So why don't you relax with he hasn't won anything?
We're a decade away. We're a decade out since that had happened. Because 2016, right, was when he started at Iowa State. So there you go. Also, James Franklin at Virginia Tech. That's something we'll dive into. We didn't even talk about Lane Kiffin at LSU. Alex Golesh at Auburn. There are so many interesting names and what they could bring to their respective programs that throughout the coming months we'll get into. We'll have our Money Moves College Football Top 25 reveal beginning a little bit later on this month as well. That said, we are at the the time of the program to get into our best bets, JBT. So let's recap how we did yesterday before we look ahead to today. For me, we end up getting home on Spain money line against Portugal, albeit it took until the 4th minute of stoppage time at the end of the game to ultimately get there. And then my heart won out over my head, unfortunately. And honestly, like, my head thought that USA was going to be the better team against the aging Belgium squad, and that was not the case. So lose 2 on that one because I had them to advance and on the money line. So unfortunate there, 1-2 day.
For me, just the one play. We talked about this before the game as well. You and I were both sitting there watching that. Spain to win to 0 yesterday. Like you've already said it, 1-0. So get the victory. I think that'll be it. The last 2 Spain games I have played to win to 0, but I think we're hopping off the train in this next one against Belgium. So that is all for the recap from yesterday.
Looking ahead to today, we do have that Switzerland-Colombia match that is coming up in a matter of moments out there in Vancouver. I did end up playing both teams to score on this one, -105 this morning. I still see -110 here at Circa. Switzerland's gotten on the board every match of the World Cup to this point, scoring at least 2 in 3 of 4. They've also conceded a goal in all but 1 match. And as we discussed earlier on the program, I kind of lean Colombia for this game to begin with. So if I think they're going to win, but I think Switzerland's going to score, might as well bet both teams to score. So kind of the best of both worlds there. 2 teams that have been strong and reliant on their attack.
Okay, I like it. That's it? That's all you got?
I do have a play for the Dodgers as well, as I mentioned earlier, that you made fun of me for, but I think that they get it done on the run line. Played -115 against the Rockies earlier. This thing just keeps getting bet up, though, so if you want to limit that juice, as I saw at DraftKings around -140 on the run line, you could do the -2 to bring that down, get a push, but I think that they should win by more than that. That's why I'm betting it. Justin Wroblewski, last time they played the Rockies, went 7 innings, 1 earned run allowed in a 12-3 win. 10-2 as a starter, 2.80 ERA, covered the run line in 3 of his last 4, and all but 1 of his wins have been by 2 or more runs. Michael Lorenzen on the other side has rarely got past 5 innings this season, gave up 4+ runs in 2 of his last 3 starts, also really struggles against left-handed batters, not a recipe for success. Against the lineup that's got Shohei Ohtani clicking now once again after what we saw yesterday, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, just feels like a recipe for the Dodgers to bounce back. And I say bounce back, they still won yesterday against the Rockies, but gave up a big lead, went to extras. I don't think that happens today.
Yeah, sorry, I was so mean to you earlier, Stormy.
I didn't say anything.
I know. I got to be so much more nicer to you. I apologize. Yes, I made fun of Stormy because said the Dodgers would dominate, and they said yes, $3 favorite dominating.
So it's low-hanging fruit today on the Dodgers, but I think it comes through. So that's where I placed my shekels.
All right, mine.
Oh, and can we get a little check mark for my boy Mizorowski? Let's go.
Okay.
We cashed 1 today.
You did. All right, I've got 3 for you today. 1, I forgot to put in the rundown. I apologize, crew, but we did talk about this earlier. So Summer League Thunder +3.5. That'll be the play as we had discussed. Look, this is just a bet on the fact that I think the Jazz are going to sit some guys after playing, and they still have Las Vegas coming up. That's going to start on Thursday, so you're going to save your ammunition and some of your big guns for that one. We still have not gotten any indication that is the case. Still plenty of 3.5s out there. 3s are starting to pop too, so just keep that in mind. But Thunder +3.5 in their Summer League game today in Salt Lake City against the Jazz. Home court. World Cup, Colombia in regulation +135. We have discussed this one. That's coming up at 1 o'clock, so looking forward to watching that. And I'll trust him one more time. We'll see if he can get it done. Marlins, first 5, +105 with Brian Wu on the hill. What? Marlins?
Yeah.
Mariners, not Marlins. Apologies. What do you
Care to elaborate?
Oh, we talked about it. I mean, the home run splits, and that should be the Mariners, not the Marlins. They can't play each other. I get confused. But the Mariners, with Wu, his home road splits have been absolutely awful. But you trust that in a pitcher's park that he's going to revert back to the guy that's been pitching very well out there in Seattle, have a little bit more confidence. I mean, you look at his game log. You're talking about 7 innings of shutout baseball, followed by 4 1/3 of giving up 5 earned runs. A lot of those come on the road. ERA over 6 on the road, ERA under 2 at home. I think you're going to be a little bit closer to the guy that pitches at home in a pitcher-friendly park. So we'll go with the Mariners first 5 with Brian Wu on the hill +105, not the Marlins. I apologize.
Also, we talked about this a little bit earlier. The Paul Skeens Pirates hosting the Braves today. Skeens -150 moneyline favorite for Pittsburgh in this spot. Total 8.5. But we didn't mention it in our handicap, and I think it's just worth noting, and it's crazy to think about. I know the Braves have struggled a lot, but the Pirates specifically, when Skeens have been on the hill, they've lost the last 9 in a row that he started for them.
9 straight starts.
That's
and
crazy.
Think about some of the prices you're laying, too, as we had discussed after his most recent start, I believe it was against Philly. So
that's what we should do. We need to go back and do the math to see what that ROI number is. That can't be good.
When they lose today, we'll do it.
Okay.
We'll just do it anyway. A little statistic for you as well. The numbers are in.
4?
The U.S. men's national team, the loss to Belgium. 30 million viewers. It's the most watched soccer telecast in U.S. history.
So what
We all tuned in for that.
God, it was brutal. Well, how much do the numbers dip now for Fox with the U.S. out of the tournament?
I think they will to an extent.
I mean, the games have been so good.
Right.
Though.
These have been so freaking good. Again, to reiterate that stupid stat that they put in, stupid isn't good. 31 goals after the 90th minute, not including extra time. This has been a bonkers tournament, and the entertainment value has been sky high. So, yes, I mean, and remember, too, it's not even just USA. Mexico's eliminated as well.
Yep. All the host countries
Yeah,
are, too.
so that maybe I think that's clearly going to take a ding for some. But I think if you've watched enough, you've understood how good this has been. And I think you're just going to keep watching anyway.
That's a wrap for us today. Coming up next, Follow the Money with Mitch and Paul. Get excited for win some, lose some. Something tells me that you're going to get the best of both from that Argentina-Egypt result. If you had the 10-1 on Egypt, you're probably a little bit depressed. Meanwhile, if you were somebody in play that grabbed a 30-1 on Argentina on the 90-minute line, good on you, my friends. Have a great day, everybody. Good luck with the bets. Excited to be back with you tomorrow. We're going to have more and more college football as we go in the next month or so.